A very good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome Mr. Meet Singhal, who is the co-founder of Stamurai. He is an IIT Delhi graduate and he is also a person with stuttering. Sir founded Stamurai 5 years back along with his friends to make speech therapy accessible, affordable, and of higher quality. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and for addressing and to talk about the app to us, to our students. Over to you, sir.
Great. Thanks so much, ma'am. Thank you for giving us this chance. And thank you, everyone, for joining in the meeting today. So, as ma'am mentioned, so I am Meet. I am the co-founder at Stamurai. So, Stamurai is a speech therapy app for stuttering. So, we help people who stutter overcome the disorder. So, in this session, basically, I'll walk you through our story, how we got started with the app, and I'll also walk you through how the app works and how it's intended to help a person who stutters or stammers. And anytime you have a question, you can either unmute yourself and ask the question or put the question in the chat box. At different times during this meeting, I'll just stop sharing my screen and I'll just see the question in the chat box and try to answer those. So with this, I'll just share my screen and we can begin. Uh, could you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, is it still not visible?
No, sir.
Okay, let me just try to share it again. Okay, it's telling me an error occurred when sharing your screen. Let me share my entire screen. So somehow I am not able to share my screen. Is there a permission that needs to be enabled for that?
Um,
Okay, I can share my Chrome windows, not my. Okay, just give me a second. I'll just make the presentation as a PDF and open it in Chrome.
yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. So, yeah, so like I mentioned, Stamurai is a speech therapy app for stuttering or stammering. For those of you who don't know, stuttering and stammering refer to the same condition. It's just that stuttering is a term used in the US and stammering is a term mostly used in UK and India. So during this session, I'll just briefly start with talking about myself, how I got into this space, my experiences with stuttering. Then I will talk briefly about how stuttering therapy works, my own learnings, the learnings of our team, and then we'll talk about how the Stamurai app works. And finally, we can talk about some of the plans we have for our future. So, like you know, my name is Meet Singhal. So I am an IIT Delhi graduate. So I am an engineer by training. Post my college, I worked in corporate for a few years. and I'm also a person who stutters. So I started Stamurai along with a couple of my friends. So one of my friends also stutters. So it so happened that I was helping him with his speech disorder. So I had tried self therapy on myself with great effects, and I was trying to help him. And during that conversation, we sort of came up with this idea that why don't we actually try and do something that not only do we help ourselves, but we also have a chance to help other people who stutter as well. And during that conversation, the idea for the Samurai app came up. And our thought was that even if nobody else uses it, we'll just build this app for our own practice. And once we built the app, we made the app live. We started to see people downloading the app organically by themselves. Some people using the app hours at an end, and that encouraged us to take the plunge full time into pursuing this uh, uh, opportunity in the year 2019. And so, as I briefly mentioned, so I am a person who stutters myself. I have been stuttering since I was a child, ever since I can recall. And stuttering runs in my family. So my father stutters, all of my uncles stutter. And what you'll find is that this is pretty common. So if you encounter a person who stutters, there is a very high likelihood that somebody in their family stutters as well, if you go far enough down their family history. So stuttering is both environmental as well as phys- it's in the person's genes. So, and of course, as I was growing up, there was an enormous amount of social stigma attached to stuttering, just like it's in India. So it's almost considered like a blot on the family if any of your child stutters. So we never really used to talk about stuttering in my household. And it was like the elephant in the room. Everyone knew that there was something wrong with my speech, but nobody would talk about it. Nobody would go and seek outside help. And the problem only got worse over time for me. And it is in the nature of stuttering that from the outside, it looks like it is just a speech disorder. So it looks like that the person is unable to speak a few words, but the real change, the real effect that stuttering has on the individual is on their psyche. It's on their emotional state, and things very frequently get to a point where stuttering ends up controlling the entire life of an individual. So, what I mean by that, let me explain that with the help of an example. So, for example, in the third year of my college, I was in Bangalore for an internship, and my place of work used to be 3 kilometers away from the place I used to stay. And there used to be a bus that would pick me up from my home and drop me to my office, and vice versa. But the problem is that whenever I would board the bus, I had to tell the driver the stop name, and I couldn't say the stop name. So every single day, I used to travel 3 kilometers back and forth on foot just to avoid that situation. Similarly, whenever I used to go to eat out, I would never order the dish that I liked. I would always order a dish that was easy to speak out for me. Or if I was in my classroom, I would never answer a question. If it was a day where you had a viva or something where you couldn't skip that the speaking opportunity, then I would try and find ways to skirt that situation so I don't have to speak in front of the class, etc., etc. So eventually, my stutter ended up defining me. So I was my stutter was me. And it was during the final year of my college that I had to sit for interviews, I had to sit for placements. And that was a situation I couldn't avoid. And it was during that time that I almost had a nervous breakdown. And it was then that I started to seek help. So I actually went ahead searching for a few speech therapists. It was only very late that I realized that most of the therapists that I went to, they weren't even licensed therapists. Most of them were quacks posing as therapists. And fortunately, at that time, I got my hands onto certain stuttering therapy books, the kind of books that all of you would be reading as part of your coursework. And I started going through them and sort of started doing self therapy on myself. So that worked wonders for me. Within a month or two, I got into a situation where I could talk one to one with a friend comfortably. Within 3, 4 months, I became comfortable enough to talk in a small group. Within 6 months, it got to a point where I could tell a joke to my friends. So that was something that I could never even imagine telling a joke because it's never funny if you get stuck in the middle. So it's not like I don't stutter now. I still stutter. It's just that it has gotten to a point where stuttering does not affect my day to day life. So if I have to take a stressful session like this, I don't say no to it. I come and take that session, even if I fumble here and there on a few words. So, or if I am leading my company, I have to talk to employee, I have to talk to investors, present to investors. I don't run away from that situation. And that is really the aim of stuttering therapy. So you don't try to achieve fluency. What you aim for is you try to elevate the quality of life of the individual who stutters through therapy. So I'll take a pause after this slide for questions, but I think this is important. So I just briefly want to talk about what I call the vicious cycle of stuttering. So really, this is like a summary of what I understood how stuttering develops in an individual. So what happens is that when a person stutters, when they were a child, very small child, stuttering, for those of you who don't know, stuttering is like a speech disorder where you know exactly what you want to say, but you are unable to say it. So it's characterized by three kinds of core behaviors. So one of them is you repeat the sound that you want to say. So say I want to say my name Meet, so I would say Meet. Repetitions is generally what stuttering starts with. The second core behavior is you prolong certain sounds. So I would say Meet. And the third core behavior is that you completely block on certain sounds. So you would say Meet. So it is generally observed that when a child starts to stutter, they start with repeating the sounds, repetitions, and over time, as stuttering develops, it turns to prolongations of the sound or complete blockage on the sounds. So I just want to talk about how that uh, development of that stuttering happens and how also the emotions come into play in that. So usually when a child starts to stutter, they're just stuttering on certain sounds. But as they become more conscious of the environment, if a peer makes fun of them, or even if nobody makes fun of them, they just get to realize that what I am doing is odd. none of my friends have difficulty saying certain words, and it's just me who is having that difficulty. And because of that, they start to develop fear, they start to develop anxiety whenever a speaking situation arises. So what happens during that phase of fear and anxiety is that their whole body tenses up because of that fear. And not just their whole body, also their articulators, be it their lips, be it their throat, be it their tongue, all of the speech mechanism tenses up. And because of that, even words that they typically wouldn't stutter on, they start to have difficulty on speaking those words and those sounds as well. So, to take an example, even if you look at somebody who is really fluent, but you put them in a stressful situation, say they are in an interview. So, even a person who is typically very fluent would now start to stutter. And the reason is the same, that in a stressful situation, everything tenses up for them and they are not able to speak as fluently as they would like to. So, because of that fear, the amount of stuttering that they have increases. And because of the increase in the amount of stuttering, their fear and their anxiety also increases. And because of this increase in fear, this anxiety, this shame, the stuttering increases further. And over time, this vicious cycle plays along in an individual's lifetime. And stuttering keeps on getting worse as we move along the individual's life. So, hence, it is said that it is very important that a child who stutters gets intervention, gets help as early as possible in their age, so that this cycle does not get a chance to play out and you are able to cut it at the root. So, right. So, I'll just take a brief pause here if anyone have any question. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. So, if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or put the question in the chat box.
Any questions you may ask in the, you may type it in the chat box.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Great. Thank you. So I'll just come back to the presentation in that case. So now I'd like to talk briefly about the therapy protocol that Stamurai follows, and which is typically the accepted protocol worldwide for speech therapy for stuttering. So basically, from this cycle, you would have now understood that stuttering is not just about the speech, it is a lot about the fear, the anxiety, the shame, basically the emotional component attached with a person's speech. So, any stuttering intervention that you make cannot only focus on the speech, it needs to focus on the person's emotions. Similarly, the intervention cannot just focus on the emotions, it also needs to focus on the person's fluency. So, basically, the therapy protocol that we follow in Stamurai integrates both stuttering modification and fluency shaping. Stuttering modification is something that is a school of stuttering therapy that focuses on the person's emotions, whereas fluency shaping is a school of therapy that focus on the person who stutters fluency. So certain strategies that stuttering modification would involve are voluntary stuttering. Voluntary stuttering, for example, involves that a person, instead of stuttering involuntarily, they stutter on purpose. So they stutter on a word that they are comfortable on, but on purpose on that word, so that they become more in control of stuttering. Stuttering is not something that happens to them, but something that they can control. Or you have techniques like pull-outs, preparatory sets, approach behaviors. So many of you would know this know these techniques as techniques. So, what to do before a stutter happens, what to do in the moment of a stutter, and what to do after the moment of stuttering happens. So, these are some strategies like that. Or you have approach behaviors where instead of avoiding a situation, you put yourself in that situation voluntarily, forcefully. So all of these strategies sort of are intended to work at the person's psyche, to work at the person's emotions, to desensitize them to stuff. Similarly, we have the fluency shaping school of therapy, where you have techniques like light contact, flexible rate, pausing, etc., etc., that sort of work towards improving the person's fluency. So the Stamurai app has a collection of 50 such tools, and we'll see what those are in a moment, that are designed to sort of train the person who stutters on using these tools. So coming to the landscape of stuttering, so there are over 80 million people in the world who stutter. So this is like 8 crore people in the world, 1% of the world's population, and 10 million or 1 crore people just in India who stutter. And like I've been mentioning, just like a tip of the iceberg, stuttering is just the outward manifestation of the disorder. The real disorder, the real quality of life that a person who stutters, the real effect on that quality of life is the feeling of self doubt, shame, fear, anxiety, nervousness, all of those emotions that accompany a person who stutters. So, if you ask me, if you were to work on something, if you had to choose between working on fluency or working on the person's emotions, you should choose working on the person's emotions. That is how big the emotional impact of stuttering is. And the problem that we are trying to solve with this Samurai app is threefold. First, that speech therapy for stuttering is really expensive. So, a course of stuttering therapy lasts anywhere from 6 to 12 months, and it can end up costing about 40,000 rupees in India. And in a country like US, it might cost you $5,000. So, that puts it out of the reach for most of the population. Second, the relapse rate in stuttering is very high. So research has shown that there is over 80% relapse rate in stuttering. And this is because mostly after achieving some fluency, the person who stutters is left to their own devices. And then they again encounter some negative experiences, and the vicious cycle starts to play again, and the person relapses. And third, in countries like India, like you might be very aware, speech therapy is scarcely available. So it is estimated that India has about 4 to 5 crore people who require some speech therapy intervention. And there are just 4,000 licensed therapists in India. So there is a huge demand supply gap. So Stamurai solves this through an automated solution via its mobile app. So the Samurai app consists of tools that help people learn and practice speech therapy exercises. Then there is a community element as well, which acts like a self-help group for the person who stutters. And then we also have speech therapy sessions, virtual sessions with licensed therapists on the app for people who require more personalized interventions. So let's see how the Samurai app works with a short demo. So I'll just share my screen once again. So can you see my screen with the demo video in it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So, like I mentioned, so stuttering affects both a person's speech as well as their emotions. So to work on the person's speech, we have fluency exercises in the app. To work on their emotions, we have exercises focused on counseling, anxiety, etc. So the very first time a user downloads the app, we ask them a few questions to understand how stuttering has affected their lives. Based, I can see some questions coming up. Okay. Based on the answers, we create a customized training plan for the users. So this is like on day one, you have to practice this, this, this. On day two, you have to practice this, 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 and so on. So let's see what the first task in day one looks like.
Hello friends, welcome to Stamurai.
So we make use of instructional videos to teach speech therapy exercises. This would be an example of an instructional video.
The best way to split any word into syllables is by a three-step procedure. First, put your hand under your chin. Then say the word. Finally, count the number of times your chin touches your hand. That is the number of syllables.
And after every video, we would ask people a quiz to test their understanding. We also have exercises in the app to help people practice. So this would be an example of a delayed auditory feedback exercise in which we play your voice back to you in real time with a slight delay. So it has been observed that there is some auditory feedback issues with people who stutter. So this kind of practice sort of tries to alleviate those shortcomings. You
When
have
you
been
have
hit
been hit
by the
by
spending
the
bug,
spending bug,
it's hard to
it's
turn
hard
things
to
around.
turn things around.
So we have a library of 30 plus such tools. So spanning fluency exercises, counseling tools. So this would be an example of a breathing exercise. We also have guided meditations to work on the individual's anxiety.
Hi, welcome to your very first meditation session.
And this would be an example of a counseling tool. So, for example, this is called a story mountain, in which you try to uh, write down your experiences with stuttering or your life with stuttering in the form of a story. So, this helps to externalize the process of stuttering. And like I mentioned, we have community elements in the app. So in this, you can jump onto a video call with other people who stutter and practice the exercises that you are learning in the app in a real life but safe environment. This also acts like a self-help group where people can talk with other people who stutter and share their experiences. And this also helps to decrease the amount of anxiety, the amount of shame that they have towards their stutter. So let's see a live call in action, how it works.
Round one will be a reading round where each speaker will be invited and they will have to read out the text presented in the chat box.
For decades, the world is facing the problem of climate change.
Tuesday, May 19 at 3:10 a.m.
However, they're seen as very smart, very wise. We trust them with our lives.
And we have also added elements of gamification to the app to make the whole experience more engaging. So, for example, this is an example of a daily streak feature. So, you lose your streak if you don't practice every day. So, this is to encourage the user to practice their speech every day. So let's look at few of our user reviews now.
Hi, my name is Venkatesh.
I'm Sudhanshu Sekar.
My name is Chetan.
Stuttering is quite a deep sort of speech impediment which is not so easy to understand.
Actually, my voice is a obstacle in the journey of my career.
I was tensed and worried because nothing seems to help me.
Meeting so many people in a call and people who stuttered was a great experience for me. Express my emotions that I had not expressed to anyone else.
I noticed a lot of improvement in my voice and confidence also.
I am a lot more confident in my life, be it the social skills, the group discussions. In fourth year of my college, I cleared interview of a company, East India Udyog Limited.
Okay. So that's a bit about how the app works. So I would again take a brief pause and leave the floor open to questions before we move ahead. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask those or put the question in the chat box. Okay, great. So we can continue. I'll just share my screen back again. So I'd just like to talk about our team as well. So like I mentioned, we are 3 founders. All of us have been close friends for over 10 years now. And 2 of us stutter. And we have a 20-member team in total. 3 founders, 3 members on the clinical side, about 6 people on the tech side, a few people on marketing and operations. Coming to our business model, so we have a subscription-based business model. The basic Stamurai app is free to use. If you want to unlock the advanced exercises, you have to purchase a subscription. Subscriptions are priced at 3,000 rupees per year in India and $100 a year in the US or Western countries or the more developed countries. And if you compare us with other competitors, so there are a few competitors who offer you speech therapists over a video call. So they are great, they increase access, but the cost and the demand supply gap is not met. So we believe that Stamurai is a perfect solution that brings the cost down, increases access, increases convenience for a person who stutters, and also the quality of therapy is standardized through that. Along our journey, we have won various awards. So we won the ZS prize out of 25,000 other applications. So this is like the premier healthcare award in India. We have also won the BIRAC Social Alpha Assistive Tech Challenge, the HDFC Startup Challenge. We've won the ProSo Sika Challenge. We were accepted into Axel Founder Stack. We've been featured on Google Play Store, on Apple App Store, and we are currently featured on the Apple India website as well. So the journey has been very exciting for us. And as far as the Samurai app adoption is concerned, so the Samurai app is available on both iOS and Android. So the app has been downloaded in over 155 countries. We have seen over 200,000 installs to the app so far across the world. And we also have clinical trials in progress to provide quantitative data on the app's efficacy. And yeah, so the app has been rated very highly on both Play Store and App Store. So just a few highlights. So yeah, we have users across the world. We have clinical trials ongoing, won various awards, etc., etc. At this point, I'll also take a couple of minutes to just talk about, for us as a company, where we intend to go towards the future. So uh, we think of ourselves as a company focused on people with special needs, and not just people with special needs, but also professionals like you who help these people with special needs. So our vision is to build uh, products that help this audience. So just like the Stamurai app, we have recently launched an app called Speech Toki. This is currently available just on your iPhones, which is an app for children with speech delays. So you can check that out as well. We intend to launch many such apps going forward. Apart from that, we have also launched a new offering called Able Space, which is a tool for speech therapists, occupational therapists, special ed teachers. So this is a tool to help automate your workflows. So you can take progress data for students on this app. You can schedule your sessions on this app. You can create assessments on these apps, and it will generate graphs for you. It will generate reports for you. So I'll just briefly show you how it looks. So this is what the app looks like. So it's free to use for teachers. You can just sign up to the app and just set up your caseload. So these are all of my students. I can take data on their goals. So if you work with students with IEP goals, you can take data on them, and the app will generate graphs for you. It will generate reports for you. You would have an assessment section here where you can actually assess students using this app. So, right. So that's a bit about our future plans. And these would be my details. So if anyone would like to get in touch with me anytime, feel free to email me, WhatsApp me, find me on LinkedIn. Would love to discuss more. So thank you everyone, and would love to answer any questions. So yeah, so I think we have somebody raising their hand. So Hem Darshini would love to answer your question. So you might be on mute right now if you are speaking up, Hem Darshini.
Hemdarshini, you want to ask a question?
Okay, I think they raised their hand by mistake. So anyone else, any questions? Would love to answer anything you may have in mind. Okay, great. So what I will do is I will also leave my email in the chat box. So if anyone of you have a question later, or if you just want to connect, feel free to email me anytime. And yeah, I leave the floor to you, ma'am. Over to you.
Sir, we have with us Mr. Monish. He has a question.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello, sir. Yes.
So here, like, I have a question regarding the assessment. So, how to carry out the assessment? So, how the so about the stuttering severity? How to assess it?
Great question. So, Mr. Monish, there are various stuttering assessments available that you can use to. So, the most popular amongst them at this point of time is an assessment called OSS. So, that is like the gold standard for stuttering therapy assessments. But that is like a very involved assessment, and that requires a professional to assess a person who stutters. But if you are sort of dealing with a client who cannot afford that kind of treatment, Stamurai app has 4 self-serve assessments that they can use for free. So one of them is S24, which is like a list of 24 questions that tries to assess the emotional impact of stuttering on a person's lifestyle. Another one is SSRSS, which is like a bank of 60 questions. And if you answer those, it spits out 3 metrics. One of them is on avoidance, one of them is on confidence. And similarly, there are 2 more assessments as well. So there have been various research studies which have been carried out, and it has been found that the self rating of a person's stuttering and the clinical rating of a person stuttering, both of them have a very high alignment. So the self rating of the person who stutters is very good, and it is very strong indicator of what to do. So yeah, so these are some of the methods you can use for assessment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sir, I have a question. How does the app decide on the technique to be used with a particular client?
Right, great question again. So when the person signs up to the app, we ask them a few questions. So many of these questions are similar to the assessments I just talked about. Based on the assessment results, we try to gauge the impact of the stutter on the person's life. And based on that, we identify what kind of exercises are the most likely to benefit the person. So all of these algorithms have been designed by the speech therapists in our team. And of course, there is nothing like the person has to do what we are telling them to do. The person can also pick and choose the exercises that they like and just go with them, or they can follow the training plan that we have designed for them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sona.
Mhm.
You have developed this app. So, is there any significant improvement for any patients who use this and who has not used this? Can
Right.
you briefly explain?
Yes, please. Great question. So we have a trial ongoing on in AIMS clinical trial. The initial results for that are out. And what we have seen is that there has been incredible improvement for people who have used the app. So if you talk about the improvement on the person's emotions, so that has been measured on different scales, and the improvement on an average has been about 50% in a span of 3 months and about 70 to 80% in a span of 6 months. The improvement on a person's fluency has been about 20 to 30% after 6 months of usage in that trial. Apart from that, apart from this quantitative data, we also have data from user feedback that we frequently get from users. So there we see users' life changing after using the app. So we are rated about 4.6 out of 5 on Google Play Store and 4.7 on App Store. So that sort of points out to a qualitative feedback from the users' side.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, perfect.
Any other questions?
Okay, great, great. Thank you so much, ma'am. And over to you. Thank you, everyone. It was nice talking to all of you. Thank you for coming to this session. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions in the future, feel free to email me anytime at meet@stamurai.com.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was really nice listening to you. It was very interesting to listen to the story as well as the app. We will also explore the app and we will get back to you with our questions. Thank you so much for enlightening us about the app. I'm sure our students would have also gotten benefited and we will also use it with our clients. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.